You need to make the best out of it, because eventually you will die. You know, life is terminal. I'm going to die. You're going to die. You're all going to die. And when you're going to die, that's not up to me or to you. Of course, some people just shoot themselves. And that reminds me of a meeting I had with a number of doctors some years ago. These doctors were all heat doctors. So wasn't supposed to have any argument, right? And we were talking about establishing a metabolic, innovative, integrated medicine group. And one of the doctors asked, there was an oncologist there, hey, Barry, his first name was, what would you do if you had cancer? That was just about blew my mind. Barry's the oncologist with the Rolls Royce and the big castle for house and all that stuff. Whatever he has, a lot of earthly goods. So Barry goes like this. Okay? This is as true as I'm standing here. This is the oncologist guy. You know, this was all doctors around, and we're supposed to understand this. I will never forget this, and I can never forget this Barry, because he went on, as we say, practicing. Practice makes perfect. So these guys are practicing some for 20 years, and they're still not near to be perfect. So how can I trust my life and my health on those who are not doing a perfect job, who are still practicing? And that's what they call themselves. Where is your practice? Where are you doing all these things? Well, you know, 2014, whatever, Federal Highway. That's where they're practicing. This thing here, any questions? Okay, are we having fun?
Yes. Yeah, very much so. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Talk more about the
Okay, this thing here is, that's my brother. Let's see. We did so-called cancer profile on him, and I did that for over 10 years. The cancer profile can not only foretell a developing cancer years before it happens, but it's also very good to follow up a person who has cancer to see how well she respond to it. Some people become it because they take all their intestines, guts, and ovaries, and everything else out for whatever reason. And at year 1, 1981, he has a quite elevated marker, the PHI enzyme. That enzyme is the malignancy factor. It causes cancer to spread. I'm very convinced that that enzyme is responsible for the so-called circulating tumor cell. Anybody have heard about that, the circulating tumor cell? Well, the circulating tumor cell is a cancer cell that escaped the tumor and going somewhere else. Nowadays, doctors are realizing that cancer is metastasizing way before they, Barry and others, thought that it would. Okay, now this enzyme can tell that my brother had the metastatic potential right here in 1981. He didn't do much about it. He did pray a lot. He loved Jesus, for that matter, and he could hardly wait to be with Jesus. But then came the suffering, the pain of that cancer. Well, he was going through for years and years and years, and just 10 years later, is this which way does this go? I don't know, pour down. This one. No. Back. Okay. Say 10 years later, he was diagnosed now with a metastatic prostate cancer. I knew was something happening here. I didn't know that was his prostate, because the tests that we are doing not organ specific. I only know that there was cancer developing. It takes 10 to 12 years for it to develop. So at this point, now he's diagnosed with a metastatic prostate cancer. His PSA, if you know what that is for prostate cancer, was normal all the way to the diagnosis point, but this enzyme was very elevated. And here, now, he has it in his lymph nodes, and he has it in his bones. He's growing little horns in his head, and he's in Pain City. So now he's getting chemo, radiation, and ends up in the Santa Maria cemetery. Anybody know where Santa Maria is in California? Yeah, that's a little bit north of Santa Barbara and south of San Luis Obispo, and that's a cute little Spanish town that I lived a number of years there. So that's where he's buried. He was done with that. And then later on, I wanted some more samples from him, and now his carcinoembryonic antigen, which is a colon cancer marker, is elevated. So he's telling me that he has a hard time to defecate, and he has some blood in his stool, whatever. So now he's going back to the practicing doctor, and they tell him that, okay, so metastasis to your colon. He's going to have a resection of the colon. They take part of his gut out. He's keep being tortured, and then he dies. So that's him, or it was. But let's see if I have it. No, this one. Okay, so that's his story. Now here, for the cancer profile, which can foretell a developing cancer, as many as sometimes, in his case it was 10 years, and some people are not so lucky to have the test done 10 years ahead of time, but it will tell before any other method can detect the problem. It could be the CT or CAT scan, it could be the MRI, nuclear magnetic resonance, it could be an X-ray, it could be palpitation, whatever it is. These things tell that there is something brewing. This enzyme, PHI enzyme, regulates anaerobic metabolism. Again, more oxygen, less cancer, less oxygen, more cancer. It is important for sugar metabolism. It converts glucose to fructose 6-phosphate and now channels cells into anaerobic without oxygen metabolism. So it is a survival factor for cancer cells because cancer is anaerobic to a great extent. So here we have an individual who has no cancer. We did the cancer profile here, and she has no elevated markers except her dehydroepiandrosterone is very low. That value is that of about an 80 or 90-year-old woman, but I think she's 49, which means that her adrenal glands are fatiguing or fatigued out, which means that her immune system is already impaired because this hormone is, I call it the adrenal anti-stress pro-immunity longevity hormone. It's required for T lymphocyte, thymic lymphocyte, T cell production. And these T lymphocytes are the front line of our defense against cancer and viruses and all those things. So she's looking forward to or facing a developing situation whenever it's going to happen. But at this point, she don't have any cancer at 49. Okay, now this person here doesn't have cancer but has elevated tumor markers, especially the PHI enzyme, just like my brother. And interestingly, she had a cancer tumor marker very high. Nobody was guessing anything here because she had no diagnosis. But I see that she's going to have a diagnosis somewhere down the road. Suppose this was 8 years down the road, and she knows, as she did, what the results are. This is a time when you can work on prevention. You know, once there's a diagnosis, that's going to be a rough road. That's going to be very hard. So we need to catch this actually number one killer before it really happens. It doesn't mean that you have no hope when it already happened, but this would be the ideal way, right here. Now this person does have cancer. This was 36-year-old. Now today we see that more and more women at such young age or even younger have cancer, particularly breast cancer. And this is most certainly due to environmental factors, like the plastics, for instance, and all the carcinogens that we consume. One of those things may be caffeine, coffee, and so many other things. So you need to be very aware of what you eat, what you drink, what you don't, what you do, what you think, what you don't, all those things. So this person better watch out. This one here is a 52-year-old female. She has all the markers elevated. Her DHEA, which is the immunity hormone, is pretty good. That could be much higher though. Elevated PHI enzyme, as I showed that before, which causes cancer to spread. We have the HCG hormone that causes cancer cells to divide. The liver is good. Carcinoembryonic antigen is high, which was a marker for colorectal cancers, but it's actually a better marker for breast cancer and some others. The thyroid